Talk about Tehillim Kuf Aleph, Arze Halvanayin, Adira HaTorah, Bali Trisin, B'Mishnah Gemara. Kina Kuf Aleph talks about the Asar Harugi Malchus. They introduce to us this Arze Halvanayin, the cedars of Lebanon, the powerful ones of Torah, the ones that fight with their shields in the Beis HaMedrash, with Mishnah Gemara, Gibarei Koyach. These are the leaders of our people. And as I'm sure most of my audience knows, that twice a year we tell the story about how they were murdered by the Romans. Today on Tisha B'Av, and then again with a different title, a different nusach, Eila Eskara on Yom Kippur. So I want to point out something surprising, something strange. We've always learned that the 10 Harugi Malchus, the 10 superhuman leaders of the Jewish people that were murdered, they were murdered for a reason. What was that reason? Once upon a time, Yosef HaTzadik was betrayed by his brothers. This was the source of all of Sinas Chinam. Everything that breaks down amongst the Jewish people has its source in Parshas Vayeshev. Incredible story, unfinished business. And as we read about on Yom Kippur, the Roman, Yamach Shemar, the evil Romans, they decided that the great leaders of the Jewish people at the time of the Churban, of the destruction of the temple, they are the ones that have to be a kapara. They have to atone for the 9 people that sold Yosef HaTzadik. The 10th one was Keneged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As Rav Shimshon Master Pali says, that was Rabbi Akiva. And what bothers me, amongst many things, what bothers me, is that here in Arze Levana, on Tisha B'Av, we don't mention at all Sinas Chinam. We don't mention at all the obvious, the proverbial elephant in the room, that we have to work on ourselves. There's no Musar in Arze Levana. There's no mention if only Klal Yisrael could get their act together, things will be better. The Musar dimension, the Sinas Chinam dimension, that's on Yom Kippur. Why then? Why on Yom Kippur? But here, on Tisha B'Av, the narrative is different. And as we're going to read now, this Kina Kaf Aleph talks about one thing and one thing only. It talks about pain. It talks about, in the most graphic detail, how our leaders, one after the other, our leaders are the essence of our nation, the most beloved and the most revered. And each one had their own unique murder and their own unique torture that is unfathomable. And that's all we talk about. On Tisha B'Av, everything was reduced to this one thing and one thing only, this world of pain. And Yom Kippur, where the Chayris, the Gemara Moed Katan says, Mises Tzadikim, Mechaprim, the concept of kapara, that's what we should be talking about. No, there we talk about Sinas Chinam. Today it doesn't even get a mention. So I want to give my 2 cents. I'm not going to try and give an answer. But I do know that the pain of the ancients, the pain of the people that they went through for 2,000 years, in the period itself, it ends by connecting it to the pain that goes on from generation to generation. At the very end, we say the words, Kahena v'kahena hosifu b'nei avla, la'anais v'ga'ara. Generation after generation, they continued to torture us. Beskila, sreifa, herek, v'chenek, niyachal, l'shara, all forms of different methodologies of how they destroyed us and how they hurt us. Neseres v'menu yochlu aroyes eseh pazura. The lions, they tore apart the scattered sheep, that's the Jewish people. Chazei atnufa, we compare ourselves to the karbanos, chazei atnufa v'sheich hatruma, tarfu arya v'hakvira. The lions, they ripped them apart. So somehow or other, the pain that happened 2,000 years ago is the pain that goes on from generation to generation. And I don't have to be the one to share with this audience about how much pain the Jewish people are going through today. When today's Gadol Adar, Moshe Hillel Hirsch, he said to us, we have not seen anything like this since the Holocaust. He's not a man, anyone that knows him, he's not a man that exaggerates. It's almost inconceivable what's happened to us since Simchas Torah. That day itself, the extraordinary stories of pain that we're still hearing to this very day and still trying to recover from it. Every day, almost every day, another one of our beloved sons is another korban al Kiddush Hashem. And with that pain comes the pain of the families. With that pain comes the pain of the people, their friends, the people that know them. And the pain of everyone that knows any soldier that, as we speak, is putting their lives on their lines for us. The pain of the hostages. And we think about, as we speak, the Gehenna that they're going through. And the Gehenna of their families and their friends. And the Gehenna of what is going on throughout this land, the anxiety. My own grandchildren in the north, what they go through. The pain of anti-Semitism. And my own students telling me stories across America, England, of what they've been subjected to, the humiliations, the fear, the embarrassment. And all of this is just the pain that we're going through this year. Pain did not begin on Simchas Torah. We still have the tzaras of our older singles, the tzaras of those that are Baruch Hashem married, but then they find out that their marriage is torture. People that go through all kinds of abuse. The pain of those people that are not zochas to have children, and all their friends have children. The pain of sickness. And today, there's no end of the sicknesses that people are going through. All over the world, people that we know are going through such terrible pain. And of course, sickness today includes mental sickness. This is something that has increased 100-fold in the last couple of years. All kinds of depressions and anxieties. And their suffering, the suffering of their loved ones. As Rav Hutner said, as we greet Mashiach with the pain of the prat, of the individuals, going through each one with their own tsar. And this kina that we're about to read is a focus on the pain of our leaders. And out of those leaders, there's no question that Rabbi Akiva was the greatest of them all. And what he went through is the tamsis of the tamsis, the essence of all the pain that we're talking about. Rabbi Akiva himself, what he saw, what his life went through, from the beginning to the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him makkah achri makkah achri makkah. This man who I just mentioned from Rav Shimshon Astropoli, based on the pasuk Kol asher yaveh tachas hashevet hasiri yekodesh Lashem. Everyone, the way he reads it, everyone who is taken to bring kapara to one of the shevet, one of the shvatim, hasiri, the 10th one, which is Rabbi Akiva, as he proves, is kodesh Lashem. Is Rabbi Akiva the kodesh Lashem? Look at his life. The first 40 years, he lived angry against the Gedolim. He said terrible things about what he would do if he would see any person connected to Torah. Then he has his turnaround. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the beginning is good to him. He leaves his wife and he comes back with his Talmidim. But then what? He's the man He's the man that saw the Churban. As a young man, he saw the Churban. He saw the Churban literally from close. All the terrible, terrible atrocities and the blood and the pain that he saw. And then afterwards, as an older man, he sees the Churban of Beitar. And here, Chazal say the most extraordinary things, and he literally was involved intimately, because he, Me'oimik Daita, saw in Bar Kaziva the potential of Mashiach. As the Gemara in Gittin brings down, he carried his kalim. You picture Rabbi Akiva, an elderly, Gadol, Agdar, the one that the Arizal calls the Av of Teresh Sheba'al Peh. And he's carrying the kalim of Bar Kaziv, believing this is the Mashiach. And the Rambam writes clearly that what he saw was correct. The potential was there if we would have been Zeicha. And everything crashes. Everything crashes in Beitar, but not Shas Stam. That was the greatest bloodletting of all time. We can't even fathom what it means that for 7 years, that they were nourishing their fields, the goyim, with the blood of the casualties of Beitar. The blood was so immense that it went into the sea. All of this Rabbi Akiva saw. It's not just he read about it, he saw this with his own eyes. How Hadrian, the evil Hadrian, built around his vineyards. He built walls made out of dead human bodies. And they didn't decay so you could see your loved ones. Rabbi Akiva saw this. On a personal level, Rabbi Akiva, he had this great plan for the Jewish people, 24,000 Talmidim. With that, the 2,000 years of Torah that had preceded the Churban, the destruction of the temple, would not be lost. And he put all his strength into building. Anyone over here, I see a lot of people here in Chinuch. It's not easy to build a Maisid. It's not easy. My son has a little yeshiva. I see what he has to do just for his guys. Imagine for 24,000 Talmidim, but he puts Rabbi Akiva, he puts his heart and soul, the V'ahavta Re'ach Kamecha, and he builds them. And all of that comes crashing down. Come to one cheshbon, this man, at this point now, he was about 100 years old. And at 100 years old, Rabbi Akiva is going to 1,000 levayas a day. How much can a person endure? The Gemara brings down Maseches Smachos. He buried not one son, he buried 2 sons. I know a little bit about the sugya of burying children because my in-laws, some of you know the story in Memphis, and they buried a son. My mother-in-law, she never recovered. She died way beyond her time from going from the most vibrant, extraordinary woman, building her community. One child, from losing her one son. Rabbi Akiva lost 2. He brings down, Menuchamani. I can find comfort in this as well. And then finally, we get to what we're reading about right now. Finally, we're going to get to how it all ended. And they all lived happily ever after. That's not what happened to Rabbi Akiva. It brings down over here, it's based on the Gemara at the end of Brachos, a different version in Yerushalmi, but basically it's the same thing. The Romans brought him. I'm not sure, some of you may know, I think he was the last of the 10, I'm not sure exactly. But the man who had seen all the pain that the human being could possibly see, he's finally subjected to a unique torture that we've never seen before or after, where they tear little pieces of his skin with an iron comb one by one. And this is happening, and they force the Talmidim to watch. Over here in this forum, Rabbi Magon will remember his name, but this was going back maybe 20 years. We had a yid that was in Krakow and described to us, I remember how we were all crying, he described what it's like to see your Rebbe being tortured. Your own Rebbe. your Rebbe that loved you, the Rebbe that gave every moment of his time for you, and you think about the person that you love so much, and you're watching with your own eyes, being tortured to death, how does Rabbi Akiva react? How does Rabbi Akiva react? So the Gemara brings down. He says the most incredible words. He says, my whole life, I've been waiting for this moment. Every day I sit in the Shema, V'ahavta es Hashem lekech b'chol levavcha, o b'chol nafshecha, o b'chol ma'idecha, b'chol nafshecha. I always waited, when will I get the chance to do the ultimate mitzvah of giving my life over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? V'le'ah kemena. And now I have a chance to fulfill it. Should I not fulfill it with joy? As my Rebbe said, at that moment then, he was the happiest man in the world. The happiest man in the world. How can we fathom such a thing? How can we get close to understanding someone who had got makkah achri makkah, being hit and being hit and being hit and being hit and being hit, and he has so much pain, and he's living through this pain, and his talmidim are watching, and he is on this simcha, beyond, in this world of simcha, of giving everything over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No one can understand. His talmidim could not understand. The angels in Shemayim could not understand. But this is what Rabbi Akiva wanted. Where did he get this koyach from? And it's clear that you and I can only watch this from afar. There's no way we can understand the madrigas of Rabbi Akiva, but a teeny weeny bit we have to say to ourselves. There's a message for what we're going through now, because the pain that we're going through now, where is the Mara Makom if not Rabbi Akiva that we're going to read about right now? Two things I want to point out about Rabbi Akiva. Out of all his failures, about everything that he saw crashing down, one thing, he succeeded beyond belief. 5 talmidim, 5 students, Rabbi Tisha B'Av, we know them, Rabbi Meir, etc. The most famous of all is Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who said about himself, Chumois Ishel Chumois, my Torah is a 50th of a 50th, a taste of the Torah of Rabbi Akiva. And these students, the Medrash in Chukas brings down, both in the Tanchuma and the Medrash Rabbah, these students, these 5 students, not only, as the Gemara brings down, is all the Mishnayos is based on them, the Sifra and the Sifri and so on and so forth. But most crucially, and this is probably the ultimate legacy of Rabbi Akiva, the 24,000 students, the Torah of the 2,000 years of Torah had been lost. The Torah of the previous era was gone. But Rabbi Akiva created for the 2,000 years of Galus, the 2,000 years of Tohu, of emptiness and void, as the Vilna Gaon calls it. A Torah, which is of course based on Gemara, but ultimately it's the Torah, says the Medrash, it's the Torah of La'asid Lavai, the Torah of Mashiach, the Torah of a future world. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was the most important with the Zohar. He brought this out on a whole different level. But in that Torah is a spark of understanding that holding on to that Torah as much as we can connect to a Torah that Rabbi Akiva and his students had then. There was a moment in time, Rabbi Akiva's Kufa, where they were living in this world, a world of beyond, with a Torah of beyond, and that is what Rabbi Akiva with his 5 students brought into this world. Another thing we know about Rabbi Akiva, he was a man that saw constantly this world into the future. The Gemara at the end of Makkos, anyone that's made a seam in Makkos knows this Gemara. Rabbi Akiva is walking with all the Gedolei Hadar, all the leaders of the generation. And there they see, just a few miles from where we are right now, coming out of the Kodesh Kedoshim, the Holy of Holies, they see a fox coming out. Al Har Tzion Sheshamin Shulim Holchabal. And they all burst out crying. They cannot believe that the place, the Kodesh Kedoshim, where the holiest man on the holiest day would bring kapara to the whole world. And they see a fox coming out, and Rabbi Akiva laughs. How can you laugh? What are you laughing at? He says, I'm laughing because in that fox, I see the future tikkun where everything is going to be okay because all the prophecies are now falling in line into place. Rabbi Akiva, right then, at the maximum moment of pain, sees the future where everything is fixed and everything is perfect forever and ever and ever. I cannot say this for sure, but maybe Rabbi Akiva saw in that fox what the Chidah says. Arhatziyain, Sheshamim, Shualim. Shualim is the same letters as Yishmaelim. In the Holy of Holies, the Yishmaelim will be there at the end of days. And this is the last story before Mashiach comes. This Rabbi Akiva saw when Yishmael takes over the world. And the deep gullus of pain of Yishmael is in every single corner of this world. Every time, it takes a flight and you're randomly chosen because you have a beard and you come from the Middle East, it's because of gullus Yishmael. Every single sheker that you hear, every single lie that you hear hundreds of times every single day from the whole world comes from Yishmael. That's the shualim that we see through pain, like the Gedolei Hadar, but Rabbi Akiva sees through laughter. Each one of us has to think about a take-home message. For me, it's obvious that we have to try. If we don't try, then living in pain is not an option. Living in the pain could chas v'shalom live to Yush, that we give up hope, can lead to depression. God does not want soldiers at this crucial moment who are weak. He needs soldiers who are strong, who are students of Rabbi Akiva, even if it's from afar. Do not let this world that we see teach you the narrative. I'm talking to myself. We can't possibly open up the news and say this is what's going on. We have to recognize that every single bullet in both directions, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is orchestrating. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no whatever the generals are saying. Every single soldier is in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands, both on the side of Kedusha and the side of Tumah. In the world of politics, so I grew up as a news junkie. Some of you understand, you want to know what's going on. We need to remind ourselves again and again and again that this is sheker. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts into the mouth of every single politician, whether it's in America or here in Israel, what to say, when to say, when you go out, when you come in, who you should be, what your partner should be. Every single thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is orchestrating to the last due to Achtachtayna. And we have to ask ourselves, are we going to waste our time listening to this and listening to that? Or are we going to do what Rabbi Akiva did? Live a life on a different level. Live on a life with clarity that Olam Hazeh does not belong to the Jewish people. This world is a world filled with pain in every single direction. But the secret of deliverance from pain is to live this otherworldly existence of Rabbi Akiva, is to see the laughter in the foxes and Yishmael coming out of the Kodesh Kedoshim, is saying, B'chol nafshecha, with a simcha she'ein kamoi in front of you to meet him, because you're holding in a world that is infinite in its joy, that carries on forever and ever and ever. It's incredible, because not every kina does this. But this kina that we're about to read has the most beautiful ending. It ends with the most upbeat view, which is pure Rabbi Akiva. It says, Yetiv Hashem v'lo yosif ad liyasra. We're waiting for that moment God is good to us. And the Yisurim ends. Amis Barabim, Kishlesa Chelik Yaakov, and Mashiach Be'esar, when we're going to be delivered from all Asar. The Tzedek Yimlech Melech, the king, that's the Melech HaMashiach, will deal with righteousness. Yema Shleimi Yemei Eichlecha. La'oiroi Nisa V'neilech. These are the last three words. La'oiroi, this is the hour of Mashiach. This is the hour that Rabbi Akiva lived in at his moment of pain. Nisa, we will travel through. V'neilech, and we will go. Be'ezra Hashem Yisbarach. If we can just make it through this last stage of extreme pain, living in this world, where we're not living in this world, living in this world on this higher dimension, living in this world totally seeing that future moments of pure, undiluted ba'archa nira'ar. The Be'ezra Hashem Yisbarach, we will be part of the solution, together with Rabbi Akiva and his Talmidim, to bring the Oiroi Shel Mashiach today, Bimher V'Yameinu.